If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and joining me is LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts. We're broadcasting live every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the blogtalkradio.com network, bringing you some of the best golfers, teacher professionals, and entrepreneurs helping to elevate women's golf. We're so glad you decided to join us this morning, so grab your coffee and let's get started. All right, good morning once again, everybody, and thank you for joining us here live on the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and right alongside, of course, each and every week is none other than Legends Tour player and LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are, of course, your host. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Ted. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic. Another beautiful sunny day here in the south, so I can't complain, and seeing lots of encouraging posts, as I'm sure you probably are, with people getting out to the golf course and enjoying themselves. I think we've been cooped up long enough in some cases, and I think everybody's just itching to get outside and get back to some sort of a normalcy. But we'll talk about that in a moment. All right, got a great show for you this morning. Coming a little bit later on in the broadcast, on the second half, we're welcoming back Maggie Will. She's the founder of Will2Golf. Also the founder and owner of Get Fit for Putting, and she's a three-time LPGA Tour winner. But first, we're going to be entering in the No BS zone once again here in just a moment. But I want to remind everybody that the Women of Golf is brought to you by iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing top-quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. Golf Tips Magazine, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, offering insightful reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top PGA and LPGA teacher professionals, all designed to help improve your game from tee to green. So subscribe today at golftipsmag.com. Before we start the No BS zone, we got a great topic this morning too. As I was just telling you, I'm really, really excited. For those of you that have been tuning into the broadcast here the last little while, you may have heard me mention once or twice that I purchased Golf Tips Magazine. So, of course, it belongs to me now. And I'm really, really excited because we're getting ready to do the first issue since I've taken over, which will be available around the middle of June on newsstands. And around that time, it'll be going out to subscribers as well. That'll be the July-August issue. So I'm really, really excited for a number of reasons. First and foremost, obviously, it's going to be the first issue that I'm going to be publishing. But a lot of great people, including Cindy Miller, of course, who is not only going to be doing her usual great and wonderful golf tips, but she's also going to be putting in a series called Back Nine to the Boardroom, which is going to be great for those of you out there that really want to tie together your business life and golf, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. So, Cindy, I'm really stoked for this. I'm really excited about this publication. I'm glad to have you on board on the magazine as well.
You should be excited. This is great. I can't believe all the stuff you're doing. This is amazing.
Well, I learned from the master plate spinner.
That I am.
Well, I've been hearing you talk about for so many years about spinning all these plates, and I thought if she can do it, I can do it. Of course, I broke a few along the way, so I don't know if I'm as proficient as you are, but I'm going to give it a try. Yeah. So how are things? Let me just again, we got a few minutes here before we get into the No BS zone. how are things up in your neck of the woods? You're obviously still up in Buffalo because with travel restrictions and things like that. But I know you've been teaching lessons along the way. But how are things overall? Are you starting to see more and more people, itching to get back out, or what's the scoop?
Well, it was snowing sideways on Saturday, and we canceled lessons because it was 34 degrees, and
wow,
there was snow on the ground, laying on the ground. So that was a little depressing, and Sunday was not as bad, but still really cold. And yesterday was a little better, but raining all day. And today the sun is out and the birds are chirping. So I think there's hope. I think given Friday, it starts to turn the corner and gets up into the 50s and higher 50s. And then next week it's in the 60s. So it's like, yay, spring is coming. But it's been a long time coming.
Start.
So I need to get out and lose, the 10 or 15 pounds I've gained sitting here on my butt. But things are looking better. Our county some things might open Friday, but maybe not till next week.
Yeah. As everybody, of course, is closely following the news and trying to decide what's happening and what's not. Obviously, a lot of places are still, under quarantine, I guess is the best way to put it. And obviously, some of our larger cities in the areas, various states are still being closely watched. Obviously, New York and LA and some of the others that have had many cases and many losses. So we're going to continue to keep everybody in our thoughts and prayers. And just, if you do go outside, I think the best advice we can give you is just be cautious. I mean, certainly, we know you need to get out. We know you've got to do things, but just use some common sense and just follow the directions of the healthcare providers that are, we see all the time in the news, and they're giving you, I think, some good advice. And, there'll be a day when we can put this well behind us, but for the time being, we've still got to be a little bit more cautious. So on that note, Cindy, let's enter the no BS zone. And I came across these, what I thought would be a really interesting topic, and it's called the 4 short game practice drills. And these are some of the short game drills that are often used by tour players when they want to hone their short game and skills and make more ups and downs this season if you want to do that. So I know we're still a little bit under lockdown and we're just slowly getting back out to the golf course, but these would be some great way to start if you want to get your game fired up again for the season. So the first one, Cindy, and I'm just going to read a couple of things, and then we'll have some conversation on it. And this one's the first one is 1 club, 2 distances. So in order to become a genius, if you will, from 100 yards in, which is often referred to as the scoring zone, you need to really develop your feel. So a great way to practice is to hit the same club several distances to help your so I'll give you just a couple of quick examples. So let's say you're starting at 125 yards and hit 1 ball to a target. So you pick whatever club that you would normally hit 125 yards, even 50 yards, and using the same club, and you've obviously got a target that you've picked up. So the idea is you're going to go through your wedges in this particular case. If you've got 3 wedges, and if not, you could use, if you've got 2 wedges, you could use 2 wedges, maybe even your 9-iron to compensate. But the idea is you want to pick 3 clubs, and you want to hit both of them 2 different distances. So this way it gives you some options. This is something, Cindy, I know you're probably very familiar with. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that. The tour players really like to hone in on this. They don't, we've got 14 clubs in the bag. They know what distances they're going to hit, but sometimes you've got those in-between shots. And this is really what this is talking about, is those in-between shots, or when you don't need to hit the full pitching wedge. If it's 125 yards, you may only have to hit it 115, as they indicate here. Give us just a little bit of dialogue, if you would, as far as what you used to do to sort of warm up under these same conditions.
Well, I would put markers out 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and I have a little spreadsheet And what I do is I practice where I'm gripping and how big I'm swinging and how far it's flying. So I practice how far I fly the ball. So let's say we're going to start at 50 yards. Can you use a lob wedge from 50? Sure, you can use a lob wedge from 50. Can you use a sand wedge? Yes. Could you use a gap wedge? Yes. So what if you had to hit it really high over a bunker? You might want to use your lob wedge. If it's a normal lie and normal conditions, you might use your sand wedge. And if the wind's in your face and there's nothing in front of you to go over, you might use a gap wedge. So are you gripping down, are you gripping middle, and are you gripping end? So I change where I grip it and then how big I swing it. So if I swing it below my waist, that might be 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock, or 2 to 10, or 10 to 2, whichever way you see a clock. Or if it's at your waist, it would be 9 to 3. And then if it's above the waist, it could be 2 to 10 or 4, whatever way you see that. And then I actually would write these down. So I knew where I was gripping and how big I was swinging to fly the ball certain distances. So yes, you can do the same thing with these other distances that you've got here, 75, 85, 95, 105. Again, it's all about distance control. And you're right. She or he who gets it up and down the most wins.
Right, exactly. You know, we often see our amateur golfers focusing on, in my opinion, the wrong end of the golf game. They're more concerned about their tee shot, and that's certainly an important shot, no doubt. But they're spending more time on how far they're hitting their drives and the accuracy of their drives, which is important. But if you can't use these clubs that we're talking about, or if your short game is not really tight, you know, you can hit it in the middle of the fairway. But then if you can't control your distance with your irons, whether it be an approach shot to the green, or maybe you're off the green, as you pointed out, Cindy, a little bit, and you've got a bunker to go over. If you can't control those shots, you can hit the most perfect drive down the middle of the fairway, but then when it comes to closing the deal, as we say, you're just going to burn away shots. And this is why you see so many of our golfers still struggling to break 100. So really what this drill is talking about, just to sort of wrap it up, is you're going to basically play, and you can do more, but this is just a quick example, is you've created 6 distances, but you're using 3 wedges, and as I said, you may have to adjust, and you can use different clubs as well, but you're going to 2 different distances. So, and as Cindy pointed out, you know, some players choke down on the club and change their ball position for distance control, and others use swing length and tempo. So you can experiment what works both for you, but the idea is you want to be able to take those 14 clubs eventually in your bag, and you want to have multiple distances through various adjustments in that in your grip and in your you know, perhaps in some cases ball position and so forth, because that way when you get faced with a distance, right, Cindy, you're going to be able to say, okay, this is 105 yards. Well, I don't have a club that I swing full at 105, but if I choke down on, you know, whatever club it may be, I know I'm going to get that distance. So I think it's
correct.
I think it's a great and this is why the pros. This is what really differentiates. Everybody looks at, well, they're pure ball strikers, and you know and that's true, but a lot of it is because they hone in on some of these things. So here's another one, Cindy, that I think a lot of amateurs could really draw from. And that's real short game practice. And this is a little bit different than the last one. So one of the first things that, you know, we talk about with amateurs is how they practice. And more often than not, you know, maybe a fundamental change is necessary, but we try to instill practice as you play philosophy, which means that you simulate the golf course as much as you can. So you know, maybe a great drill, short game drill, is to take 20 balls and drop them around the practice green from different lies and positions. And for each shot, you want to go through your routine and set, and just as you would on the golf course, and imagine that you're playing a competition on whatever golf course you normally play. So the idea is this comes into sort of the visualization, if you will, of when you're in a practice session, instead of just, you know, standing there and raking balls, and hitting one after another, that you actually create scenarios and mimic what you might be doing on the golf course. And this is something I know you do a lot with your students, so maybe touch on a little bit about that as well.
Well, again, you want to practice like you are playing rather than just rake and hit. You want to test yourself, and you can play little games and say, okay, I'm going to hit a ball from here, from 5 yards, 10 yards, just off the edge of the green, and then I have to get it up and down. So maybe you drop 5 balls or throw them, just toss them out there, and so you get any kind of lie. You're not making a perfect lie, and then you walk up and choose your clubs and go through the whole process and hit each shot, and then walk up and make the putt, and then count how many balls can I get up and down from this, all these different locations.
Right, and a great to add a little pressure is to yourself is when you've made an up and down, you move on to the next ball. So let's say if you put, you don't have to do 20, but let's say you put 10 down. The idea is that you want to create a scenario where, you're satisfied with the result you're getting, and then you can move on. In some cases, if it's involving putting, let's say, as an example, you might want to hole a high percentage of the putts. If you're further away, then it might be a little more difficult. But if you're close up, let's say, within that 3-foot range, you want to hole all the putts, and you don't move on to the next target, if you will. So you're going to create a lot of different scenarios around the green that you may be in challenges. So, but the key thing is you want to practice your routine, get your process the same, and focusing on it should be consistent no matter what the shot or situation. You want to use your imagination and visualization, as I mentioned. Imagine that you're out on the golf course, and you can kind of create different scenarios on the practice tee, and as I just mentioned, simulate pressure while you're practicing. Always make it fun, playing from different lies and trying different shots, and give every shot a purpose instead of just being another practice ball. In other words, don't just stand there raking balls and hitting them out there. Give every shot a purpose. Imagine you've got that 150-yard shot, or you've got that, a 90-yard lob shot, over a bunker to a tight pin, or, whatever the case is. Use a little imagination, and I think you'll find that you'll begin to start improving. And Cindy, this is something that we see so many times with a lot of our amateurs, is they just don't do anything that even resembles what we're just talking about, right? I mean, they just go out there and they're hitting balls. They're not really focusing on anything, and they wonder why they're not going to improve. So, food for thought,
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
All right.
You know what? I don't think that people really. I don't know that they think about what they're doing before they do it. Sometimes they just automatically go grab a sand wedge when they should be using a pitching wedge, and hitting a flop shot when they should be hitting a chip and run. So I would challenge, everyone to just stop and think, what's my smartest play from this position? So I think that'll help all by itself.
Right, exactly. Number 3 is see it, feel it, and trust it. And this is really an interesting drill. And again, this is something else that's taken away from tour players. They've talked to many tour players, and these are a lot of the different things that we're talking about. Components are things that they do on a regular basis, and this is again why they're out there on the tour and we're not. So, or at least I'm not. So this is a great drill for improving your chipping quickly, and works on using a variety of clubs from the same distance. So you can see the benefit of using less lofted clubs from around the green. So an example. From the edge of the green, pick a hole on the practice green that's maybe 20 to 25 feet away. Take your 6-iron and go through your pre-shot routine. Your pre-shot should have 3 main steps: visualization, feel, and trust. So when you're visualizing your shot, ask yourself where the ball will land and how it will roll out to the hole, and where on the hole it will go in. When you've seen the shot in your mind's eye, feel the swing you need to produce that shot. And when you're standing over the ball, say to yourself, trust it, and do exactly that. And this, again, is another, it goes back to what we've talked about, Cindy. This is another area that a lot of people, they just get out there and they're, slapping the chips. And yeah, they're watching where it goes, but they don't really go through a process. Talk a little bit about that too.
Again, you're practicing. You're trying to get your brain to formulate the system that you're going to use when you're on the course. And that being said, you want to practice so your brain knows what it's doing. It doesn't understand whether you're just practicing or if you're in a tournament, and it really counts. So you're simulating what it would really be like. That's why pilots have to go in simulators, so that they know how to handle things in case they get in a dangerous situation. And for us, a dangerous situation is, oh, my God, don't choke. What are you doing? And so if you practice doing this, your brain will be, oh, I've done this before. It's not a big deal. So, yes.
Right. And, Cindy, I know you work with a lot of different various degrees of amateurs, and I know you do a lot of work with juniors and that. What do you do when they've got really bad habits that are not, conducive to some of the things that we've talked about? How do you break them of that habit? Is it just through repetition, or do you take a rolled up newspaper and give them a cuff on the back of the head, or what do you do? I mean, you've got a lot of students when you go to your boot camps. Yeah.
They're going to learn themselves when they don't shoot what they want.
Mm-hmm.
I just go, well, guess who's holding the club? I'm not touching the club. You are. And when you don't, that's why I love the game of golf. It's, you're the only one holding the club. So if you don't get the results that you want, needless to say, you have to do something about it. Somebody's going crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
You can mute yourself and I'll talk for a minute.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So again, the score is what we're all looking for. Everyone wants to shoot a score. So if you're not shooting the score you want, I'll ask my students, how can you find 5 shots? How can you find 10 shots? Can you retrace your round and go through it and say, well, that was a dumb mistake. Well, why did I hit it in the trees? Well, I was avoiding the bunker on the left. Well, maybe you could lay up and not hit a driver. So when you go through it and you react, first you react to what you shoot, and then you respond and say, all right, let me go through this and say, I could have hit that chip better. Maybe I should have used a different club. Then you're willing to look in the mirror to see how you can possibly fix what you're doing. And you can't, Ted's question was, do you hit them upside the head? I don't need to. So if they don't care enough to shoot a better score and they want to blame somebody else, then I might shove a mirror in their face, but you can't do anything about that unless they become personally accountable and responsible to what they shoot. And if you're not willing to look in the mirror to see what really the issue is, then it's going to be hard for them to be teachable. So, Ted, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Somebody let the dogs out, or my apologies for that. The dog was somebody was coming to the door and they were going a little crazy. But anyways, no, you're exactly right. And you're the one that's in control of the club, not us as teacher professionals. And we're trying to, give you some tips and training, if you will, to do the things you're going to need to do to be successful out in the golf course. But ultimately, Cindy, as you just pointed out, it's really up to the individual. You have to be accountable for what you do out in the golf course. Nobody else is going to, add strokes to their game because you hit a bad shot. If you're playing with in a group or something in a scramble, then obviously they're not going to be too happy with you. But other than that, you're the one that's responsible for it. All right, the last one, Cindy, which is kind of an interesting one, is the par 18 game for the short course, for the short game rather. And this is really an interesting one. So just to give you an example, this is something anybody can do, and I think it's really, really, again, sort of adds a little bit extra pressure. So from around the green, you're going to pick 9 locations to play from. You're going to pick 3 that are easy, 3 that are sort of a medium difficulty, and 3 that are very difficult. And each mini hole, if you will, is a par 2. And by playing all 9 holes, you're going to make a total, of course, par 18. And you're going to play all 9 holes, and keep your score and make your 18 your target. So, and you'd be surprised at how, if you're not cheating, by picking all really easy stuff, how difficult that can be. But I think that's a great little game to play to make it interesting and fun and challenging to yourself. What do you think?
Absolutely. You got to get it up and down from 9 locations.
Yep.
I would challenge tour players to do that. And I must tell you, our next guest, she could do it because she's got the best short game ever. She's a short game wizard. But this is a great test. Great test. Love this one.
Well, and what I really like about it is, they suggest, okay, pick 3 easy, 3 medium, and 3 difficult. And if for some reason you get through and you're parring, then what I would do is I would challenge yourself. Or if you find that it's a very easy test, then instead of having 3 easy, 3 medium, and 3 difficult, up the ante, take away the 3 easy and add them to the medium or into the difficult. So make the 9 locations more difficult as you become more proficient in it. And that way it's going to help you really focus in on some of the difficult challenges and so forth that you might be faced with. So I think it's a great way to test your skill, particularly around the green. Because really, Cindy, that's where the scoring counts. It happens on the green. It doesn't happen out in the fairway. You're setting yourself up for scoring opportunities, but it really doesn't happen until you get around the green. And really what these 4 points that we talked about today really help you to define how good of a short game player you want to be. If you want to be a better short game player, then there's things that you're going to need to do as players to get out there, and these are just some things that you need to focus on. The tour players are doing it. If it's good enough for them, by gosh, it's good enough for you. Would you agree, Cindy?
I would agree.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it so much. I think you and I and Alan, Cindy's husband, who's been in the game for many years as well. And we see this with so many students where they just are not putting any effort into it, and then they're crying on your shoulder, wondering why they're their game. And it's just not going to happen overnight. It takes time. Golf is not an easy game. It is challenging. That's the fun of it, really, isn't it? I mean, that's if it was too easy, people probably wouldn't enjoy it as much. But it's the challenge that people really enjoy is the fact. And it's frustrating at times, as we all know. And I'm sure there's moments, Cindy, when you've been out on tour and maybe weren't playing your best and you just thought, why the hell am I out here? But, there's also a side of it that brings you back. What do you think? Absolutely.
You are right on the money. We always get lured back.
That's right. It can be just a matter of 1 or 2 shots, in a round, or it could be maybe a couple of holes that you strung together that just really came on fire. And even if the rest of the round stunk, it sometimes can be that shot. It can be those holes. It can be just some part of that day that keeps you coming back. So if you want to have more enjoyment and you want to get out there and play your best golf, then play this show over after the end of it. Play it over again, listen to the first part, and pick up on some of these tips that we just talked about. Very interesting. I really like that. I enjoyed that this morning. All right, we've got a great guest coming up here. In fact, I see that she's ready. And she was actually on the show back in September of last year. I think it was on the 3rd. Her name is Maggie Will. She's the founder of Will2Golf and founder and owner of Get Fit for Putting. And as I mentioned earlier, she is a 3-time LPGA Tour winner. So, Cindy, let's welcome our very special guest back, Maggie Will.
Good morning.
Good morning, Cindy. Good morning, Ted. Thanks for having me on. I was just listening to your last segment, and I love it. I just issued a challenge to all my kids, and I'm calling it WOG Golf Challenge, and that is for them to go play 80% of their normal yardage and play 9 holes and, learn to break par, learn to break 33, learn to break 30, because they're just sort of getting back into it, and it's a great way to build their confidence. And that short game, you got to be sharp to go low.
You sure do.
You want me to go first, or you, Cindy?
I love all these challenges.
I'll go first. All right, so
okay.
Talk to us about the myths of college golf recruiting. Give us the scoop.
Yeah, so the promised land, right? That's the promised land. These juniors are out there playing junior golf in hopes of navigating their way to college golf and who knows, maybe even professional golf. But what I found over the years is that, when I was coaching college golf and then now, helping juniors build their playing schedules and play college golf, is that I see them make a lot of bogeys before they ever tee it up, before they ever stick that peg in the ground. They're making bogeys because of so many myths that are out there. And, the first one I think of is, show me the money, which is, that all of these programs are fully funded, right? There's a big myth out there that, there's 6 scholarships allowed for women at Division I, 4.5 for men, and they just assume that every program out there is fully funded and just flush with cash, and that's not the case. A lot of them are being creative in how they're helping these kids with multiple types of packages, but they're not all fully funded. That was the first thing that I found when I got into coaching, and the parents would come and say, "Well, you have 6 full scholarships. Why aren't you using them?" Not always the case. Even in a lot of top programs, it was very surprising to me. So, saving now and starting to find out those answers early are a good thing to do.
I agree, 100%.
So how does a program get funded? Do you have to go raise the money yourself?
Well, a lot of times college coaches are doing that. A lot of times their athletics departments and their various foundations are doing that. So a lot of times it's a combination, but certainly in certain places where I coached, you were pegged with whether it was raising your operating budget or some of your scholarship money in doing different events. That certainly happens out there, and even at some of the larger programs, the coaches, while they're not actually responsible for making those connections and building those programs or events to raise that money, they're very involved in supporting them, if you will, with their presence or with maybe the team's presence to get those. So it runs us right into where people think that every college has the same budget, whether it be D1, D2, D3, NAIA, or even all of the Division I programs. Folks think that, every college golf program or every basketball program has this set budget that's equal throughout. And that's not the case either. But what I did find when I was coaching college golf, that there are a lot of really, really creative college golf coaches out there. And while maybe they don't have the largest budget and they don't have a Learjet to fly, from tournament to tournament like maybe some programs do, they do interesting things. Like when I was at UNC Wilmington, we did what we call sort of a tournament swap. Cindy Ho did a great job of building one of the best women's college golf tournaments at a really great golf course, Landfall, who happened to host a NCAA championship as well. And what she did was she found a way to bring in all the best college golf teams there for an event, and then from that she would swap out. So you would think of UNC Wilmington, in the scheme of things, as being sort of a mid-major school because they don't have college football, right? So they're considered, in this bucket of mid-majors. But yet they provide these wonderful opportunities for their women's golf program by getting to play in Auburn's tournament or UNC's tournament or Oklahoma State's tournament. So there are a lot of creative things out there. Our men's golf coach at the University of Richmond, he just happened to be sitting at a dinner next to someone, and the guy said, what can I do to help you? And he said, well, I'd like to create this international experience for our kids. And from that, developed a relationship that they go once every 4 years, which is allowed by the NCAA rules, to Ireland. So, it's being creative out there if you don't have all those budgets. So when you go to the big top school and they take you through their equipment room and you see all the swag and everything, that's all great, but there might be some other really neat programs out there that provide experiences that maybe that school doesn't. So that's
wow.
my
I
take on it.
Know all this.
Yeah.
So these parents are like with their hand out, right? Don't you want my kid? And blah blah blah. And my kid is great, and you should do this for my kid, and they don't understand that it's not a free handout.
Right.
So
and
what's the right attitude parents need to understand?
When folks in on my site, I always recommend to them to be picky, right? To be choosy. Start building their list early of what it is that their child might want to navigate towards, and by being picky and being choosy means by being picky about the events that you're going to play. It's not about playing every week. It's about going out there and doing Ted's challenge to get better so that when you do play, you score lower. It's about being picky and choosy of where are my realistic chances and where are my reach chances. And, the parents, they have to be driving the bus to a certain extent, but not be over driving it, meaning what can they do? They can help their child understand, financially what this is going to take, and then what's necessary, and then, encourage the junior golfer to, take those reins and take some responsibility. I always tell folks that it's quite a shame that we're asking a young person under the age of 18 to make decisions that, even an adult at 35 might not be able to make. So it's a really tough and cruel position, but when they get the information and when they become educated about it, it is amazing how that light bulb goes off, and they just take to it, and they're off to the races, and it's really fun to watch. I've got students that have been walk-ons that have played. I've got students that have been recruited and earned scholarships. I've got a student right now who is always up for a challenge and was allowed to be a walk-on. And we have a saying in our house: "Let your clubs do the talking," and keep your mouth shut and go shoot a score, because that's basically all they want. So I've told this student of mine who has not played yet, who thinks it's unfair, and I said, there's no way this coach is going to pick you unless you're shooting 2 or 3 shots better than the person she's taking, because you haven't proven yourself in a tournament. And all coaches know that when the gun goes off, the scores go up. So what would you say to someone who's trying to fight for their existence, which I was one of these people who I shut up and went and practiced and did what Ted was talking about? How would you nicely say to them, it's all about what you shoot, and if you shoot lower, the sheriff's going to take you? Yeah, and you're so correct about this 1 or 2 shots lower, right? Because it's like, man, you got to, if you're the low man on the totem pole, it's like a startup company, right? If you're going out and you're trying to raise money, and a company that's, an IBM out there that's been proven and strong and whatever, I mean, it's just so much easier, right? They're a proven entity. And I was one of those kids too, Cindy. I chose to go to Furman. I turned down North Carolina, where I would have started and I would have played. I chose Furman. I chose it for the challenge. I chose it for the academic stimulus. And I go there, I've got college player of the year on my team. I got a freshman that I'm, rooming with who's going to be college player of the year. I mean, we don't know who we are at this point, but they were considerably better than me. And I would go into my coach and I would say, gosh, I can't believe so-and-so can play that well, and look at their swing, or look at their, the way they chip or something. And I was kind of like, what about me? Because I was this little girl from the small town. I was trying to take on this challenge, but I was mad because what is wrong? Why am I not getting the pick or the spot? Because we would qualify for 3 and he would pick 2. And that was because he knew so-and-so might be sick or they might be whatever, but he knew they were a proven entity and he wanted to save those spots. And, he told me spring term of my freshman year, he says, Maggie, I get here at 7 o'clock every morning and there's no one on that putting green. There's, I don't understand it. And he didn't say you're not there. He just said there's no one there. It's free and available to get better. And he said, now get out of my office. Right back then, you could say that. So, I left there, and I was so mad, and I said, this guy's going to show up, and this green's going to be like it snowed with golf balls tomorrow morning. And from that day forward, that's what it looked like for 3.5 years. And guess what? Maggie started playing because her scores went down because she got better. And, but that's I had that can-do kind of attitude, and I recommend that for every junior golfer. Put your bag down, figure out your number, hit the shot, and go pick your bag up and go do it again. You have to have a little bit of grit and determination. And
You do. And it depends on how much you want it. I mean, again, when this girl went there, I said, I think you should redshirt. She looked at me and she goes, redshirt? I'm not redshirting. I said, well, let's look at the numbers here. So she played in one tournament, and she was the worst one on the team. And I said, now you've screwed up your redshirt. Well, now that the schools aren't going back, I said, you would have gotten a whole year of eligibility had you redshirted. Well, I'm going to get that, and I'm like, stop. Don't argue with me, right? And so Ted had asked me earlier, are you going to slap them on the head with a newspaper? I said, no, they're going to have to learn themselves that I'm not touching the club. And if you really want this, like you did, you were out there every morning. How bad do you want this? And I think part of that is, the poor little rich kid who's given everything and doesn't have to work for anything.
Yeah, but that can happen in family setting. We use that sort of saying in quotations, but there's different kids. The light bulb comes on at different times. I will say this though, of thousands of junior golfers that I've met along the way, or that I've helped, or that I recruited, or that I met while I was in the recruiting. 3 to maybe 5 out of 1,000 actually go into college and play at the level that they're playing, or even a better level. There's just a little bit of a hiccup there that, I don't know how to make the machine work for the laundry. Oh, I've met, friends to play around with. Oh, gosh, that came up quick, that test. Oh, whoa, we were away on a trip and I forgot to do that report. So it just, the level of expectations go up, and they don't quite correlate that to how to manage that, and therefore their golf scores go up and then their grades go down, and it's like we want to go the other way. They want the grades to go up and the scores to go down, and they end up on this tip the wrong way. And the ones that are gritty and determined, they find a way to turn that back around. But I really do try to prepare folks for that. But every so often there's one that goes to a place where they do get right into the lineup, they're comfortable, and they're off to the races. But I certainly appreciate the ones that, want to try to step up and try to stretch themselves a little bit more out of their comfort zone. But if they're not really gutsy and gritty, it can go sideways fast.
Well, and again, I agree, because I was like you were, and I am all about underdogs, but I just want them to know that they have to have more grit and work a little harder, and if they do, they can get what they want, and I'm all about encouraging them, but I just also, the number is, what'd you shoot? That's what it is. It's not, well, I did this and I don't really want to hear it. It's like, what did you shoot? So I agree. And it is difficult when you go away. I didn't know how to use a washing machine, but you learn all kinds of new things. So if you were going to tell parents, I want you to tell them where they can go to your website, join and learn all the stuff. But if you were going to talk to them, started on the right process, what would you say to them?
Well, first I would tell them to really determine what their level is. And like you said, inside of the site, we help them with that. So we help them find events where they can be successful, and we help them find events where, they can stretch themselves a little bit. But so many just go straight to the stretch events, and they stretch themselves over and over and over again, and their confidence just gets pounded, and it's horrifying to see. Instead of doing those, like, hey, I'm really struggling from 10 feet. Well, guess what? Go make a ton of 3-footers and then add a 10-footer, and make a ton of 3-footers, and then add a 10-footer. So that's kind of, a sort of scenario that just a small scale of how to do that. But we also, I want to just jump back real quick to what you were saying about them not playing well, or the previous comment there. And the one thing that it's just another myth that I want to just bust right out here, and that is that these junior golfers always have to play perfectly in front of the college coach. They're mortified that they're going to have a bad round, and then that's going to mean that they're not going to get recruited. And I'm here to tell you that it is the exact opposite. Coaches want to see the kid play bad. They want to see the junior golfer struggle a little bit, and then what are they going to do in reaction to that, right? Then they're going to find out really quickly, what is this kid's grit? What is this junior golfer's, maturity level in bouncing back from a problem? Because college coaches know there are going to be problems when they get to college, and there are going to be problems in the classroom, there will be problems on the golf course, there will be problems with their friends, there will be problems with their parents, right? Because they're learning how to stretch their boundaries. And they know that, and they want junior golfers who can become college golfers who are just going to be comeback kids, right? That they know how to make a mistake, they know how to admit to it, and they know how to plan for it, and then they actually go out and execute it. And the bonus is that if that plan and that execution actually works, that's like extra credit. They don't know, you don't have to bounce back on the next exact shot, the next hole, the next 9, the next day. But at some point, there needs to be that maturation where the bounce back happens. And that's the grit, parents. That's what we're talking about. Build that into your junior golfer's mind, that it's okay to make a mistake. What's your plan of action to recover from it? Go execute it. And like I say, it's a bonus. It doesn't have to be a have-to-have, but when you can have that conversation in the recruiting with a college coach, hey, coach, I know you came out and you watched me play, and I shot 83, and I normally shoot 76, but it finally hit me in the face that my putting, my short putting is just atrocious. So here's what I've done. Every day now, I've added 50% of my practice to short putting, and I've noticed now that, I've been doing this for 2 weeks, and here's my track record over those 2 weeks. And, hey, by the way, I just played another tournament, and now my average, I'm down to 74. You're a lock. I mean, the coach is going to recruit you 6 ways to Sunday for that right there. So,
awesome.
Help your junior golfer. If parents want to be involved and they want to help teach your juniors how to do those sorts of things, because parents are doing it every day at work, right? They're coming across problems, they're solving them, they're putting actions into play, into work that are now going to create new results. And to me, that's what I think that a parent can help, how they can help their junior golfer, and then therefore that's going to help them navigate to college, because they're going to start building a storyboard of when this happened, then this, and then I get this result. And then they're going to get recruited by their reach schools.
Got it. And one more question, and then, Ted, you can go. Are all D1 and D2 schools or D3 getting an extra year of eligibility with the COVID?
Well, that is the ruling from the NCAA, and a great question, because that was the ruling, and the ruling was that it was up to the student athlete if they wanted to do it. Now schools are stepping out and saying, we're not going to allow it because they don't have the budgets for it. Now schools are stepping out and saying, we might let you come back, but we're not going to give you a scholarship. We're going to give it to the one that was incoming. It's a mixed bag would be the best answer to that. And so if I went straight out to all my 2021s and said, you need to be, if you haven't been on the phone, please be on the phone. Please be sending short snippets of videos. Please be staying in close contact with that college coach, because I'm getting calls from them saying, hey, how do you think so-and-so would feel if I had to cut their numbers a little bit because, I've got to take care of this fifth year now who's really great and could carry us to another level while this person comes along. And then I've got the opposite where coaches are calling and saying, hey, I'm all set for 3 years. I don't need anybody. And then 3 weeks later call me back and say, hey, I need somebody for next year. So it's really an all over the board thing, and there is no one answer to it. The answer is the NCAA is allowing it. It was supposed to be up to the student athlete. The schools now are cutting into that and saying, we don't have the budget, but others do. So you have to reach out to each school individually and find out what's going on that. It's been a real conundrum. What I have found, though, is generally the Division III schools feel like their student athletes are moving on. They've gotten good jobs or they've gotten into grad school, and they're moving on.
Got it. Go ahead, Ted.
Very good. Very interesting. I was just listening to, everything, Maggie, that you were talking about, and it was so spot on. One thing that really stood out, that you talked about is, really what the coaches are looking for. Sometimes a diamond in the rough, can be their best asset. And it's so true what you said that, the kids have to, the coaches want to see you at your worst and then how you respond to that. Because that says a lot about your character, and it says a lot about who you are overall and how you're going to act as a player. I mean, how many times have coaches seen, a player that walks in that just has a phenomenal game, but then a pressure situation comes up and they just have a meltdown out on the golf course or in their practice session because they didn't play as perfectly as they thought they or felt they should. And that's something, that you have to really work at, and it's going to take time. And that's something, as you mentioned too, that parents can really help at. I want to ask you something, given our current circumstances, obviously a lot of folks have been under, quarantine or lockdown or what have you, and they're just coming out for the first little bit here. What advice would you give them as far as what they should be focusing on? You've mentioned about, reaching out to, the college recruiters and so forth, or the coaches, but what about, they've been a little stagnant, let's say, for the last, month and a half, 2 months. What should they really be focusing on when they get back out on the golf course now in order to make sure that they bring their game back up to snuff?
Yeah, I have been for the last 6, 8, 10 weeks, since all of this started, really recommending to my members in their weekly email that they use this time to develop a plan and, issued like a 4-foot challenge, whether that's, most of them have gone out and gotten a carpet to put in their house. And, how many 4-footers in a row can you make? Just to make it a game and a challenge, realizing that they were going to get better at their 4-footers, right? How great would it be every time you go out to know that inside 4 feet, count it, right? It would make your long putting a lot easier. It makes your chipping a lot easier. Wow, if those got a lot easier, how much easier would your iron game get? Gosh, if your iron game got easier, how much easier would your driving get? So, it all sort of flows back. But golf is about problem solving. Every shot is a problem. Like, how do I get this ball from here to there? And so it's developing a brain to work around those factors. And Cindy's right. Golfers were perfectionists at all levels. I don't, junior golfers all the way through to the professionals. I mean, it's kind of like our perfection drives us to work harder, but our perfection drives us into the ground too. You talk to a tennis player, they don't know how they won. They just know they won. You talk to a golfer and they had a broken par, and they're going to tell you, I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that. But I've recommended for my juniors to do 3 types of videoing. One would be if they're not able to get on the golf course, go out in the backyard and say, take a plastic ball, take a pine cone, I don't care, make some swings, right? Explain to the coach what it is that you're working on in your game, what the issues were when golf sort of stopped, and things that you've been doing. It's going to show your personality, it's going to show your ability to solve problems. The next would be if the driving range is open or you have a field where you can actually go hit a real golf ball, go hit some real golf balls. Talk about, again, things that you're working on your game that are going to help you improve when you get back. And the last one would be film yourself playing a hole of golf. I mean, you can cut out all the in-between and the walking, but film yourself, with your laser. Oh, it's 280 through this fairway. It's a dog leg right. I'm going to hit my X club. Hit the shot. Tell them why you're trying to hit it down the left side or the right side of the fairway. Now go describe the pins on the right, the green slips left or right. Do those sorts of things. You can do that in like a 3-minute probably or less video, and you could play one hole of golf so that the coach, because we don't know how much junior golf there's going to be, how much tournament golf there's going to be. And just because junior golf is starting back up in places, it doesn't mean you have to run right back out there. I mean,
Right.
The coaches are always going to push you for scores. That's their job, right? That's their job. They're a college golf coach. Their job is to create a team that has the lowest scoring average. If you'd like to be a part of that team, shoot scores that will help lower their scoring average. That's the bottom line to it. Now, do a lot of personalities come into it and sort of a mix of the team culture and all of those sorts of things? Yes, but there are so many programs out there that you're going to fit in one of them, and you're actually going to fit in more than one of them. So you don't really have to sacrifice yourself as much as you think you have to, but you do need to communicate.
Well said. It's interesting. Some of the things that you mentioned about what was really kind of intrigued me over this last little bit is how creative people have gotten at home. You see all the videos and posted, whether it's on Instagram or some other social media, and just people have said, I'm not going to let this stop me from working on my game. And as you said, they've put a little mat or something, or they've created some sort of a little PlayStation, if you will, to hone or keep their golf skills up. And it's just amazing, really, to see that even through this diverse time, that the cream rises to the top. The people that really want to get out there and play are doing things at home while they're stuck at home in preparation. So there's some great words. Just one final question as we get ready to wrap up. If a coach has a student that comes in that definitely has the physical game, but really lacks a lot of confidence, what can a coach do to help bring that person's confidence up? They're just maybe not maybe they're more of an introvert personality, so they're just not somebody that's real confident in themselves, but even though they've got a good game, what can a coach do to help them out?
Yeah, some juniors are more quiet than others. It doesn't necessarily mean they lack confidence. A lot of times the bullies in the classroom are the ones that really lack confidence. But I would say that as a college golf coach, you're trying to make your job as easy as possible, right? So some coaches really find that intriguing, and they love pulling the best and changing, and getting the kid that's in their shell out of their shell, if you will. But others, there's not, their focus is on something else. So the communication in finding, the right environment, whether it be the school environment and or the team environment where you're going to grow, is important. And that's why I recommend to these parents and the ones that did it, way back, start driving your kid through a college campus. They don't even know what they're looking at the first 10 times. But, eventually then they're going to be like, hey, look at that, or hey, or they take them on a tour, when they're in 9th and 10th grade. It doesn't mean a hill of beans to them. Everybody has some school, NAIA, D1, D2, D3, somewhere around them that they can drive to within the day and go have a look at things. Right now, the crazy part is there's so many virtual tours out there. Do them over and over and over. You'll be surprised the education you get from that.
I couldn't agree more. Well said, Maggie. Maggie, let the folks know how they can reach out to you and your website information so that they want to go and check things out. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, we're www.will2golf.com. It's WILL, a numerical 2, GOLF.com. You can get there at TO, but the numerical 2. And come on the site, check it out. We have tons of free information on there. In addition, you can become a member and see our databases, and I help you navigate. So that's the key.
Thank you very much, Maggie, for joining us this morning once again. We appreciate you coming on and instilling some very wise and well-chosen words to help a lot of our college students out there how to navigate and get through the system. And we appreciate it and exposing some of the myths that maybe they've thought of or have heard of. Thank you for sharing that. We appreciate you coming on as our guest.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie.
All right, that was our special guest, Maggie Will, LPGA professional and founder of Will2Golf and founder and owner of Get Fit for Putting, 3-time LPGA Tour winner. A lot of information there, Cindy, just a wealth of information for those that have kids that have aspirations of playing college golf, right?
Absolutely. Awesome.
All right. On that note, we're out of time. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this morning on Women of Golf. And once again, a special thank you to our guest, Maggie Will, for joining us. And we hope that you will join us again next week here on the Women of Golf. On behalf of Cindy Miller, I'm Ted Odorico. Thanks, everybody. God bless and have a great week. Stay safe. Thanks, Cindy.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening this morning to the Women of Golf Show. Tune in live each week by visiting blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf or on any of these social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course Spotify. If you can't join us live, check out our on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts. To get updates for future shows and upcoming guests, you can follow us on Facebook at Women of Golf. You can also follow me on Twitter at TedandBuckCEO and Cindy at Cindy Miller Golf. Please remember to join us next week on the Women of Golf Show. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.